Fireline Promise. The night the Ponderosa learned our names, the ridge went orange like a bad memory. My dozer blade bit rock, and a voice on mutual aid, one I didn't know yet, said my name like a fire shelter. Rafa, do not punch through that snag patch. Bring them to Shasta District Fair, Gate C. I'll have airway kits and cots ready now. I'm Rafael Rafa Salgado, 29, dozer operator on a CalFire contract out of Anderson, which means my office is a steel room that smells like dust, diesel, and old coffee. And my job is asking a mountain to change its mind while the wind negotiates behind my back. I grew up off Twin View, learned the alphabet from engine numbers and the prayer from my Tio Bruno. 3 points of contact and the fourth is luck. People think fire is noise. It is also math and manners, lines tie to roads, roads tie to ridges. Ridges remember what they owe the valley. At 1847 on a September evening, a red flag warning played broken violin across the scanner, and the Ponderosa drainage lit like gossip. Spot fire below Quartz Hill, wind from the north-northeast, humidity a suggestion. Air attack painted with orange and hope until the smoke sat down and said no more planes. Engines staged on Old Oregon Trail. Crews hiked through manzanita that had waited its whole life to be useful and chose arson. Ops dropped me at Branch 2, Division Zulu. We were going to tie in a dozer line from a spur road to a rock outcrop that looked like a statement. If we did it before the wind did something impolite, the Ponderosa would have to behave like a neighbor. If not, it would turn into an out-of-town guest. I had the blade at half angle, the ripper teasing the dirt like a dentist with a grudge. When County OES patched in Public Health and Red Cross and, unexpectedly, a voice that was not command and was nonetheless necessary. Rafael Salgado? The voice said, trained calm with a Reading vowel, a teacher's patience hiding inside an EMT's diction. This is Noah Keane, Evac Center lead at the Shasta District Fairgrounds. We've got oxygen users rolling in on car power, insulin in coolers, and Gate C is where we're catching the tired. If you peel off any walkouts on Old Oregon Trail, bring them to Gate C and Rafa. Do not blade through the snag patch above Dry Creek. The roots there are whispers, and the ash bed is lying. He said my name like a fire shelter. Instructions wrapped around a promise. Copy, Fair, I said, blade hovering like an opinion. We'll hold the spur, tie to rock, and get your people off the road. How's your power? Generator 1, fine. 2 is pouting. We're prioritizing oxygen and chargers. I've got volunteers stacked like cordwood, but breathing always jumps the line. I'll keep mutual aid radio quiet for your division. But the truly shocking part hadn't happened yet. The snag patch looked like a congregation of bad decisions. Black toothpicks leaning over an ash-gray floor that could swallow a boot, and then a leg, and then a career. The wind came slantwise. Ember wash ticked my windshield like rain with opinions. Spotting on the heel. Spotting on the shoulder. I radioed Zulu and we agreed to be cowards the brave way. Hook my line west to Granite and live. Down the spur, a Subaru descended the road like a sermon in reverse. Hazards blinking, backseat a fort of cats and carriers. Driver knuckles white around a steering wheel that had never seen combat. Behind them, 2 walkers, grandparents often named everybody's, moved like an old metronome. I parked the dozer at the wide spot that had once been a turnout, and now was a decision. I jogged down with the bandana I pretend is magical, and the flashlight I actually trust. Gate C at the fair, I told the driver, making eye contact in a way you only learn after 3 summers of seeing people on the worst day. Do you know Old Oregon to Briggs to Shasta? If not, follow the Type 3 engine behind you. She nodded like I had turned the language back on. I pointed at the walkers with my flashlight, because light is an invitation people are good at accepting. You two are VIP, I said. We'll ride you to the paved, and a deputy will carry you to a place where AC is a religion. You talk like my grandson, the woman said, meaning kind and too fast. Gate C, tell Noah 2 VIPs inbound, I said into the radio, and the voice that had tasted like a shelter said, welcome them. Ask if they prefer quiet or company. I'll have both ready. I thought bulldozing dirt was the job, but the fire writes in lungs and insulin and cats, and the night bent toward breath. We tied the line to rock you could trust with your mortgage. Zulu's crew brushed out ladder fuels until the manzanita looked like it had been to the barber. Firing from the toe pinched the head sideways. Air was grounded and mad about it. The orange was eating uphill because that's what it knows. We pulled back off the snag patch the way you leave a party you weren't invited to. Over the ridge, a nice spot tried to become a personality on the north flank. Division threw 2 engines and a hand crew at it, and we pretended we were not both concerned and proud. Then Ops said the thing that turns an air horn into a sermon. All divisions, wind shift in 40 minutes, southwest component increasing. Prep for defensive. Down in the valley, the fairgrounds lit like a small city. Trailers, trucks, people whose faces learned a new verb: to evacuate. Gate C had cones like little orange priests. Noah stood under a fluorescent that borrowed its light from a generator with a moral compass. Scrubs under a Shasta County shirt, badge clipped like a thesis statement, curly hair escaping a cap it had tolerated all day. Early 30s, Jewish kid from Chico by vowels, Reading by shoulders. He moved like a person who knows the difference between haste and harm. When I rolled my lowboy past, and by rolled, I mean crept because cats with sloshing gas tanks. Or not fans of bumps, he raised a hand that was a greeting and a request and a thank you folded small, Rafa. Noah. He smiled with half his face because the other half had an assignment. You okay? I keep being, I said, like it had been waiting for a call and response his tribe and mine might both respect. Me too, he said. I'm going to steal you for 3 minutes, then give you back to Zulu. Steal me, I said, and immediately regretted how accurate that sounded in the part of me that remembers touch. He walked me through the flow like it was a river he could teach. Intake under the banner someone had rewired to welcome. Medical in the show barn because shade isn't optional. Pet area with the FFA kids running a litter box supply chain better than some counties run elections. O2 on inverters for now, CPAP users near the generator. Insulin in coolers with labels because we learned that the hard way in car, he said. He gave orders the way good people lend courage. Captain, I need your crew to move 20 cots like you're stretching a ladder. Parallel. No trips. Ms. Jenkins, you're queen of coolers. Teens, your job is to ask if anyone needs water and to believe the answer. A woman came in with a tote and a look. Insulin, she said. We have a fridge that knows its job, Noah said, taking the tote the way you take a newborn and hand it to a person who knows where babies go. Rafa, would you escort her? Our signs are good at everything except being read. He said Rafa like shelter again. I walked the tote to the fridge and wrote Madrigal on tape like I was titling a novel. The fridge hummed, doing the right thing. County radio cracked like a twig in a quiet cathedral. Spot across the old Oregon line at Devil's Garden. Winds beginning to clock. Engines en route. Division Zulu needs dozer tie-in at mile 3, or we're giving it City Park for breakfast. Noah looked at me and the map on the wall and the plume that had learned to draw. Go, he said. Bring them back if you peel any more walkers. Gate C is home base. You okay? I asked, because ritual is how we train hope. Me too, he said, which was not the question and definitely the answer. I thought my job was steel against dirt, but the night wanted steel against fear, and the next ridge wrote our names into it. Devil's Garden is one of those places where fire has done reconnaissance for a century and saved the notes. The road cut into a slope with opinions. Snags leaned like gossip. Rock offered a handshake that felt like a quiz. Zulu flagged a tie-in no one loved and everyone needed. I dropped the blade, let the ripper talk, and pushed until the duff became mineral and the mineral became dust, and the dust said okay. The wind arrived like someone late to a fight and eager. OPS to all, the Shasta Lake arm wants to smile at us. Engines keep structure defense honest. Dozers, you are art and shovel. Sky crane if the visibility stops lying. I tied line to line and heard a sentence become period. Zulu thanked me the way people who share particular fear do. Buy you a burrito I'll never make time to buy. We laughed because hunger is also a kind of religion. On the way down, a pickup had parked in a way that meant exhaustion on the old Oregon shoulder, hood up like a child's arms. Inside, 2 teenagers sat with Grandma and a dog named probably Buddy. The cab was hot with worry and disorganized oxygen. Gate C, I said, like a magic trick that gets better with practice. Noah will make your lungs behave. Follow me if you want to watch my tailgate for 20 minutes. The teens did that almost smile kids do when the adult has brought a verb. At Gate C, Noah waved us into a lane that had been optimism and now was process. He saw the cannula before he saw me. O2 first, question second. He spoke Grandma with respect and speed and the economy of a man whose throat has only so many sentences you can fit between alarms. He checked SATs. adjusted the flow, smiled at Buddy without making a project of it, and then looked at me like a breathing room. "You okay?" "I keep being," I said. "Me too." He turned to the teens. "You two are in charge of water for your row. That means power. Don't abuse it." They didn't. Wait, don't miss this detail. A church van unloaded a grand piano of lasagna and banana bread. A barber set up a chair and started giving free haircuts because feeling like a person is medical. A guy with a tattoo that might have been a dragon or patience offered phone charging from a deep cycle battery like he wanted to apologize for a previous life. 4-H kids measured out kibble with math that would make a pharmacist proud. A woman arrived with a cooler and a look that said she was both tired and refusing. "Insulin," she said. And again I took the tote like it was a child I had been granted permission to admire. We labeled lions and put it next to madrigal like we were writing a chorus. The wind shifted like a politician. The plume leaned the other way. OPS declared structure protection on Cascade and Twin View to be a team sport. I got reassigned to hold a dozer line that wanted to think it was a road. On the way out, Noah set a hand gently on my forearm, PG-13, consent the size of a breath, and said, "Bring yourself back. I have coffee that shouldn't exist." "Copy fair," I said, pretending the radio required it. Halfway up the spur, a tree that had decided gravity was more of a suggestion than a requirement leaned into the line. Fire chewing its roots like an argument you're losing. The wind said now or never. My blade said, always. I bit the trunk low, pushed like a man who trusts geometry, and let the dozer's weight vote. The tree fell where trees go when pushed by competence and good intentions. Embers did theater. Zulu knocked the show down with hose and language. Ops to Zulu, wind easing in 20. If the weather tells the truth, we'll have a flank instead of a front. Weather half kept its promise. Flank became a frown instead of a smile, which is victory with caveats. Back at Gate C, Noah was triaging a man who had left his inhaler in a truck that decided to be a boat during car and never got cured. He handed me a paper cup of coffee that tasted like burning hope and peppermint someone found in a purse. "Do you sleep?" I asked, which is like asking a creek if it ever runs uphill for fun. "I nap in the gator," he said. "You?" Cab nap with the seatbelt as blanket. "Union doesn't love it. Lungs do." He smiled like I'd said something romantic on accident. I thought the fire had taught us its grammar, but the night writes epilogues in generators and insulin, and the next hour tried to make us choose. The fairground lights did a flicker that made everyone in the show barn look up with the same face. Generator 2 coughed itself into a pout and then into a decision. No. Noah looked at the O2 row and then at me and then at the sky, which didn't vote. "I need 30 minutes of stable power," he said, the line between calm and command drawn in pencil. "Can your dozer give me inverters if I throw a transfer? Or am I inventing a cartoon? I've got 12V you can convert if your Sparky is friendly with clamps," I said. "But it's a drip, not the river you deserve. A drip keeps a lung from going theater. I'll take drip." We daisy-chained inverters like we were breaking a minor rule for a major reason. O2 concentrators sipped. Phones did timeouts. CPAP units took turns like polite children. Public Works arrived with fuel drums like Santa with diesel. Generator 2 forgave us and returned to faith. 4 people cried without putting the noise in their throats. Noah leaned his forehead against the cool metal for a second the camera didn't catch, and then went back to teaching volunteers how to stack cots without making dominoes. "You okay?" he asked when it was just us at the edge of a corridor that smelled like hay and Clorox. "I keep being." "Me too." Cliffhanger. Scanner crackle. Spot fire near Hawley and College View. Engines stretched. Dozer requested for backing under power lines. Caution. Line sag possible. The word sag turns a spine into physics. Under transmission, steel wears a halo you only see when your job makes you look. We backed the line slow like a prayer, watching for the draped conductor that would make tomorrow smaller. Engines held. Crew burned a thin black and then a thicker one. The spot gave up and became history. History is the best fuel because it doesn't burn again. Ops called containment on a flank like a teacher conceding extra credit. The wind put its feet up for half an hour like a union man on his 15. I used the reprieve to drive back to Gate C because human is as much part of my job as hydraulic. The show barn had learned a new song. Quiet. Snoring like family, dogs giving dream advice to other dogs, kids negotiating sleep with new blankets. Noah sat on a cooler, eyes open, shoulders in that between place. I took the inch next to him, not touching, the way you practice when your jobs demand restraint. He looked at me like a man who'd found a chair in two forms. "We held it," he said. "It held us," I said. He laughed softly. "Both can be true." He did the thing I had not let myself imagine. He let his forehead rest against mine for one careful beat. A PG-13 amen in a show barn that had seen heifers and heartbreak and now held breath like a sacrament. A security camera in a corner turned with the curiosity of a cat that has opinions. We stepped apart because the coffee urn sputtered empty and the universe believes in timing. 2 days later, Shasta Ready posted a recap thread, a map of containment. Sawyers shoulder deep in charcoal, dozers sleeping like dinosaurs at the edge of a black line. A photo of 4-H kids handing a bag of kitten kibble to a grandma who had been tough since before we were born. The last panel was a grainy CCTV still from the show barn. 2 small figures on a cooler, one in a county shirt with scrubs peeking out, one in a soot-laced Nomex jacket, foreheads inclined for exactly 1 heartbeat. The caption read, "Small, honest, enough." Noah texted the link, and after a pause the length of a calm breath, "Dinner?" "Always," I wrote. "Good," he replied, "because I am." We ate carne asada fries at a place off Cyprus that stays open for crews and nurses and sometimes ghosts. He told me about triage tags, the art of telling people you matter in 2 words. The car night he learned that insulin and ice can be married with a Ziploc and faith. I told him about throwing track around stumps, about cat maintenance at 2 a.m., the time a bear sat on my cooler like a union rep and I ceded jurisdiction. We didn't pick a schedule. We made a rule. When red flag pings, we text here. When the first spot decides to be a personality, we text me too. He keeps a spare inhaler in my glove box because he knows I'll give it away. I keep a Sharpie in his vest because labels are love when you're tired. Sometimes the safest place isn't behind a black line or under a Type 3 canopy. Sometimes it's the inch between 2 foreheads on a cooler while a county remembers how to be to itself. Sometimes it's a voice on mutual aid that says your name like a fire shelter. "I'm here," I tell him when the ridge looks at us like it knows our numbers. "Me too," he says. And Shasta County. Stubborn, generous, gospel choir loud when it has to be, and Quaker meeting silent when that will save a life. Lets us try again.